This is something I'm told once in a while, and I guess I'll tell it now because it still sits with me in a way most things don't. Back in 2019, I was driving cross country, Phoenix to Nashville. I'd done the trip before, knew the route, knew where the good truck stops were, knew which stretches got boring and which ones had enough landscape to keep your mind occupied. This time was different only because I was doing it alone, and I was doing it at night. My choice. I've always liked night driving. Less traffic, cooler air, something peaceful about it. I left Phoenix around 8 in the evening. The plan was to drive through the night, maybe pull over somewhere in New Mexico for a few hours of sleep, then continue. I had a podcast queued up, some snacks, a full tank, standard stuff. My car at the time was this 2014 Camry, silver. Nothing special, but reliable. I'd put maybe 90,000 miles on it by then. Knew all its sounds, all its quirks, the way the steering pulled slightly left, the rattle in the back right door. These details matter when you spend that much time in a vehicle. The first few hours were fine. I-10 East, just me and the occasional semi. The podcast was about something I can't even remember now. Architecture, maybe? Urban planning? I wasn't really listening after a while, just letting the voice fill the space. There's something hypnotic about night driving, the way the white lines keep coming at you, endless and rhythmic, the way your thoughts start to wander. I remember thinking about my dad during that first stretch. He died 6 months earlier. Heart attack, sudden. He was only 62. This trip was partly because of that, actually. Going to Nashville to help my sister sort through some of his things he'd left in storage there from when he lived in Tennessee in the 80s. Neither of us had been in any hurry to deal with it. Grief makes you move slower, I think. Somewhere past the Arizona-New Mexico border, I noticed my phone had lost signal. Not unusual out there. Long stretches of nothing, towns few and far between. The podcast cut out, and I switched to this old USB drive I keep in the glove compartment. Mix of 90s rock and some blues. My dad's taste, mostly. I'd inherited the drive along with his tendency to overthink things. Tom Petty came on first. Walls. I'd heard it 1,000 times, but it sounded different that night. Everything did. The desert at night is strange. During the day, you can see for miles. All that open space, mountains in the distance, the sky impossibly big. But at night, it becomes this void. Your headlights carve out maybe 50 feet of visible road, and everything else just disappears. You could be anywhere. You could be nowhere. It was around midnight when I saw the first car. I'd been alone on the road for maybe 40 minutes, just darkness and my headlights and the white lines. The last semi I'd seen had exited somewhere back near Lordsburg. Then in my rear view, I saw headlights approaching. Fast. I moved to the right lane, expecting them to blow past me. But they didn't. They slowed down and matched my speed, staying maybe 30 feet behind me. At first, I didn't think much of it. I kept my speed steady, 75. They stayed there. For a while, I thought maybe they were just zoning out, using my taillights to stay oriented. I've done that before on long drives, especially when I'm tired. It's almost comforting following someone else's lights, lets you relax a little. But after 10 minutes, it started feeling weird. I sped up to 80, they sped up. I slowed to 70, they slowed. I couldn't see the car well, just headlights, but they seemed a little too high for a sedan. SUV maybe, or a truck. The brightness suggested LEDs, newer vehicle. I tried to make out the shape in my rear view, but the glare was too much. I changed lanes a few times, left to right to left, testing. They followed each move, same distance maintained. My hands started to sweat a little on the wheel. After another 5 minutes of this, I decided to pull over at the next exit and let them pass. There was an exit coming up in 2 miles. I could see the sign. No town listed, just a road number. One of those farm road exits that lead to ranch land or nothing. I took it, signaling well in advance. The vehicle behind me took it too. That's when I felt the first real twist in my stomach. The exit ramp curved off into darkness. No lights, no buildings, nothing. I slowed down, hoping they'd just pass me on the ramp or realize they'd followed me by mistake. Maybe they needed the same exit. Maybe this was still coincidence. But they stayed behind me, maintaining that same precise distance. The exit ramp fed onto a narrow 2-lane road, empty and black. Pavement in worse condition than the highway. I could feel it through the tires. I pulled onto the shoulder and stopped, put the car in park, left it running. Waited. The vehicle behind me stopped too, maybe 50 feet back. Just sat there, headlights on, engine running. I could hear it now, a low rumble. Diesel, I thought. Truck, probably. I tried to see the driver, but the headlights were too bright. I couldn't make out the shape of the car, couldn't see a plate. Just light, white light, boring into my mirrors. I sat there for maybe 2 minutes. My hands were on the wheel. I wasn't scared exactly, more confused, annoyed even. I thought about getting out and walking back, asking if something was wrong, if they needed help, if their phone was dead. But something kept me in the seat. Instinct, maybe, or the simple fact that it was past midnight in the middle of nowhere, and something about this didn't feel right. I reached for my phone. Still no signal. I tried to remember the last time I seen a mile marker. Couldn't. Then the vehicle turned its headlights off. Complete darkness. I couldn't see it anymore. I turned on my high beams, looked in the rear view. Nothing. Just the empty road behind me, the desert beyond, invisible. My heart was actually pounding now. I waited another minute, then put the car in drive and pulled back onto the road, heading back toward the highway. My hands were tight on the wheel. I kept checking the mirror. No headlights. No car. Nothing. When I got back on the interstate, I exhaled. Told myself it was just some weirdo, some local who got their kicks following travelers, or maybe someone who was lost, disoriented. People do strange things when they're tired. I got back on the highway and kept driving east, turned the music up a little, tried to shake it off. Petty had given way to Clapton, Lila, the long version with a piano outro. I focused on that, tried to let the familiarity calm me down. About 20 minutes later, I saw headlights again, behind me. Same distance, same height. I told myself it was a different car, had to be. But the way it sat there, the way it matched my speed exactly, it felt the same, identical. I tried varying my speed more dramatically this time. Dropped to 60. The car behind me dropped to 60. Accelerated to 90. It accelerated to 90. Perfectly synchronized. This wasn't someone zoning out. This was deliberate. I started thinking about options. I could stop at a rest area, somewhere with lights and maybe other people. I could try to outrun them, though my Camry wasn't built for speed. I could, what? Call the police with no signal? Drive until sunrise? I checked the fuel gauge, 3/4 full. I could drive for hours if I needed to. There was a rest stop coming up in 12 miles. Sign said so. I decided to pull in there, use the restroom, get some air, maybe see if I could get a better look at who was following me. If they followed me into a lit area, I'd at least see them. Maybe it was someone who needed help. Maybe their phone was dead and they were following me hoping I'd stop. I was trying to rationalize. The 12 miles felt like 50. I kept watching the odometer, every mile marker, counting down. The rest stop was one of those minimal ones. Bathroom building, a couple of vending machines, a parking lot with lights that barely worked. More than half of them were out, actually. I pulled in. The car followed. I parked near the building, under one of the few working lights, a yellow sodium light that made everything look sickly. The other vehicle parked at the far end of the lot, in the shadows. Still couldn't see it clearly. The lights were too dim and it was too far away, and it had positioned itself in the darkest spot. Deliberate again. I got out, locked my car, walked toward the restroom. I kept glancing back. No one got out of the other vehicle. I could see it there. Dark shape. Could almost feel someone watching. Inside the restroom, the fluorescent lights were harsh after all that darkness. Everything was too bright, too sharp. I splashed water on my face, used the stall, tried to think. The place was empty. No sounds except the hum of the lights and the drip of a leaky faucet. I checked my phone again. Still no signal. I thought about writing down a license plate number if I could see one, but I hadn't seen a plate yet. Maybe they were just tired. Maybe they were afraid to drive alone and felt safer following someone. People do weird things on long drives. I've heard stories. Truckers talk about it sometimes. The strange things you see on the road at night. When I came out, the vehicle was gone. I stood there in the parking lot looking around. Nothing. Just my car and two semis parked on the other side, drivers probably asleep in the cabs. The sodium light buzzed above me. A moth was batting against it. I walked to where the other vehicle had been parked. Tire marks in the dust. Recent. I hadn't heard it leave. Hadn't heard anything. It had just left. I got back in my car and sat for a minute. The whole thing felt off, but I didn't know what to do about it. Call the police and say what? Someone drove behind me and then left? They'd think I was paranoid or drunk. I started the engine and got back on the highway. The engine sounded normal. The music was still playing. Everything was the same, but I didn't feel the same. For the next hour, nothing. Just me and the road and the night. I started to relax. Told myself I was overtired, that I let my imagination get ahead of me. That grief does things to your mind, makes you see patterns where there aren't any, makes you afraid of things that aren't there. The landscape had changed slightly. Still desert, but different. More rock formations visible in the distance when the moon caught them. I'd crossed into New Mexico proper. Was making good time, actually. Then I saw something on the side of the road. A car. Pulled over on the shoulder. Hazards on. As I got closer, I saw someone standing next to it. A woman, I think. She was waving her arms, the universal signal for help. I slowed down. My first instinct was to stop. That's what you do. That's what decent people do. But something made me hesitate. The way she was standing. Too still, except for her arms, like the waving was mechanical, automatic. And her face, I couldn't see her face. Even with my headlights on her, it was like there was nothing there, just shadow where a face should be. I drove past. I still feel bad about that, but I drove past. In my rear view, I saw her stop waving, just stood there, still. And then I saw headlights turn on behind her car. The same headlights. I was sure of it. Same height, same brightness. I pressed the gas, 80, 85, 90. The headlights kept pace. My mind was going in circles. This wasn't random. This wasn't coincidence. Someone was following me. Multiple people maybe. But why? I hadn't done anything. Hadn't cut anyone off. Then I saw another car on the shoulder, hazards on, another person standing outside, waving. Same mechanical motion, same shadowed face. I didn't slow down this time. A few miles later, another one, same setup. Car on the shoulder, hazards blinking, person waving, and every time I passed one, I'd see headlights turn on behind it, join the others. There were multiple cars following me now. I could see them in the rear view. 3, maybe 4 sets of headlights, all keeping the same distance, all moving together like they were connected, like a convoy. I thought about pulling over, thought about stopping and confronting them, demanding to know what they wanted. Thought about calling 911, but I still had no signal. I checked again. Nothing. Not even emergency calls available. Thought about driving off-road, but that felt worse. At least on the highway I was moving. At least there was pavement and direction. Then the headlights started getting closer. Not fast, just gradually. Tightening the distance, the gap between us shrinking. I pushed my car harder. 95, 100. I'd never driven that fast in my life. The wheel was shaking. The car wasn't built for this. That rattle in the back door was louder now, almost frantic. And they kept coming. The lead vehicle was maybe 20 feet behind me now. Then 15, then 10. I could see it better now in the mirror. Dark SUV, newer model, tinted windows, no front plate. I don't know how long that went on. Maybe 10 minutes, maybe 30. Time felt strange. All I could focus on was the road ahead and the lights behind. The white lines coming at me too fast, the darkness pressing in from all sides. My phone rang. The sudden sound almost made me swerve. I glanced down. Unknown number. I didn't have signal. How was it ringing? I answered it anyway, hands-free, desperate for any human contact. Static. Then a voice. Male. Calm. Pull over. I didn't respond. Couldn't. Pull over and it'll be quick. I ended the call. Threw the phone onto the passenger seat. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel. Then I saw a sign. Town ahead, 5 miles. I've never been so relieved to see a town sign. I didn't even read the name, just Town 5 miles, lights, people, civilization. As I got closer, I started seeing streetlights, buildings, a gas station, closed but lit up, a motel with a vacancy sign. I took the exit way too fast, tires squealing, slowing down abruptly, my hands cramping from gripping the wheel. The headlights behind me didn't follow. They stayed on the highway, all of them, just kept going east, like they'd hit some invisible boundary they couldn't cross. I pulled into the gas station parking lot and stopped, turned off the engine, sat there shaking. The silence was overwhelming after all that speed and noise. I must have sat there for an hour, maybe more, watching the highway, watching the road, waiting to see if any of them would come back. But nothing came, just normal traffic, a few cars passing, a truck, normal things. Eventually, I reclined my seat and tried to sleep. I didn't. I just lay there with my eyes closed, listening to the occasional car pass on the nearby road, listening to my own breathing, trying to convince myself I was safe. When the sun came up, I got out and stretched. My back was stiff, my neck hurt. The town was small, a few houses, a diner that looked like it might be open soon. Everything looked normal, safe, real, boring even. In daylight, it was just another small southwestern town off the interstate. Nothing special, nothing threatening. I used the gas station restroom when it opened at 6, bought coffee and a breakfast burrito from the attendant, a kid maybe 19 who looked half asleep. Asked him if anything weird ever happened around here at night. He looked at me like I was crazy, said it was the most boring place on earth. I got back on the highway and drove the rest of the way to Nashville without stopping. It was daylight the whole way. Traffic picked up as I got further east. Everything felt normal again. By the time I hit Texas, the whole thing felt like a dream. A bad one, but just a dream. I never figured out what happened that night. I've thought about it a lot, tried to come up with explanations. Maybe it was some kind of prank. Maybe there's a group that does this, follows travelers, scares them for fun. Maybe I was more tired than I thought and hallucinated parts of it. The phone call especially, maybe that didn't happen. Maybe my mind invented it. Maybe it was all just coincidence and bad timing and exhaustion making patterns out of random events. But I remember those headlights. I remember the way they moved together. I remember that woman on the side of the road, the one whose face I couldn't see. And I remember that voice on the phone, how calm it was. A few months later, I was telling a friend about it. We were having drinks, and it came up somehow. He didn't believe me, thought I dreamed it or exaggerated. He's a skeptic about everything, always has been. But he's also thorough. He looked up that stretch of highway, trying to find reports of something similar. He didn't find anything. No stories, no warnings, nothing on Reddit or any of those forums where people share weird experiences. But he did find something else. There'd been accidents on that highway. A lot of them. Single-car accidents, mostly at night. Drivers who'd gone off the road for no clear reason, some fatal. More than the statistical average for that stretch, actually. He showed me the data. I don't know where he got it, some transportation safety database. Most were just numbers and dates, but he found some articles too, local news pieces, short ones. And one of them had a detail that stuck with me. A state trooper was quoted saying that in several of the accidents, the drivers had called 911 right before crashing. All of them said the same thing. They were being followed. They were trying to get away. In each case, when police arrived, there was no evidence of another vehicle. No tire tracks, no witnesses, nothing. The article was from 2018, a year before my drive. I haven't driven that route at night since. Probably never will. During the day, it's fine. Just the highway. Boring even. Long stretches of desert and the occasional town. Nothing special. But I think about what's out there when the sun goes down. What drives those roads when no one's watching? Or what's watching people drive those roads? And sometimes, late at night, when I'm driving anywhere, doesn't matter where, even just across town, I check my rear view a little more often than I used to. Just to make sure there's a normal amount of distance between me and whoever's behind me. Just to make sure they match my speed exactly. Just to make sure I can see their face if they pull up next to me. Most of the time, I can. Most of the time, they're just people. Tired people going home from work or starting a long trip or lost in their own thoughts. But sometimes, maybe once every few months, I'll see headlights that stay just a little too close, that match my speed just a little too perfectly. And I'll speed up, or slow down, or change lanes, and they'll do the same, and they'll feel that twist in my stomach again, that same one from that night. And I'll drive to the nearest lit area, gas station, rest stop, anywhere with people and lights, and I'll pull in and wait. And usually, they drive past, keep going, and I tell myself it was nothing, coincidence, my imagination. Usually.